Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to yet another rousing edition of Ask Mark Anything. Today, I not necessarily am answering a question in as much as I'm going to talk to you about something that's kind of dear to my heart. I posted through the 7 to 9 a.m. club just recently a little cheeky ditty, and it kind of went like this. It said, the only grind that I'm willing to wake up to is the caffeine-infused variety. Now, I guess that's a little bit of a jibe at this whole notion of this business is really about work. In fact, the thing that attracted me to this business in the first place is that it's not necessarily so much about work as it is, in my opinion, about smarts. It's not so much how heavily you grind, it's how cleverly you play the game. You see, I've said this 1,000 times, anyone can list and sell 100 properties, but some people might take about a decade to do that, and yet others seem to know how to do that inside of 12 months. Well, I've got to say to you that if you can figure out how to beat this game inside of 12 months, well, then you're clearly the winner. So the first thing I want to talk about is how it is that you start to think about, and I use the word think, outsmarting it. You see, I don't think this business is about outworking it. It's about figuring out how to get to more sellers sooner. So I'm always saying at the List and Sell Tour that the trick is not to be focused on selling thoroughly, or that sales, for argument's sake, is not a business of precision, in as much as it's a business of effect. You've got to figure out what's effective and do that well. So I say all of us have a propensity in terms of our attitude to be either hardworking or we're kind of lazy. Now, laziness is not a bad thing, nor is it an affliction. It's just a disposition that works. You know, in some ways, some people are just naturally hardworking, yet others are lazy. Now, it's a funny observation that definitely in the technology industry, insofar as, computers and things like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they actually looked for people who were lazy because they reasoned that these people found easier ways to do things. So I say, in terms of your attitude, you typically have a natural disposition that leans you toward laziness or leans you toward being hardworking. Now, I am I'm a self-confessed lazy person. Now, laziness should never be confused with a lack of ambition. I can assure you that I'm a very ambitious person. I'm also very competitive. It just means that being lazy, that you're not given over, for want of a better way of saying it, to unnecessary exertion. And again, there's nothing wrong with being hardworking. Now, in terms of your aptitude, on the other hand, I say that you're either in one of two other dispositions, and that is you're either smart or, quite frankly, you are stupid. Now, I don't mean stupid in the academic sense, so don't anyone take offence with this. I just merely mean that you are stupid in your lack of application of what we refer to as common sense. You see, when we look at those two, we've all got two of them in tandem, and I ask audiences what the worst combination might be, people tend to say to me that laziness coupled with stupidity would be a problem. Well, I disagree. You see, I think if you're lazy and stupid, you're kind of harmless. Because although, you are stupid, you don't do anything, so you don't get in the way. By far and away, in my opinion, the worst two in tandem would be hardworking and stupid. What I refer to as the hardworking idiot. Now, this is, again, please, if you're a hardworking type, please don't take offence. But see, we're in the business of what I refer to, in terms of efficiency, of amplification. You see, the person who can list and sell the most properties in the shortest space of time wins. It really is that simple. So when I look at the prospecting game, I see real estate agents, unfortunately, taking the long way around to a prospect. At the end of the day, one of the most challenging and confronting questions that I ask when I'm teaching salespeople about prospecting, I say, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for active property sellers that are listing very soon, imminently, yeah? Or are you looking for dormant property owners that really lead to market appraisals? Yes, this populates databases, but it doesn't render you with listings with some sort of immediacy. So again, what I say is the trick is to employ some laziness and smarts. So even if you are a person that's given over to hard work, it could be said that if you employ smarts with hard work, you will outgun a lazy person any day of the week, and I tend to agree. But when we start to look at this in application, in a practical sense, when you're doing this on a day-to-day basis, the truth really starts to come to the surface. Think about this. And I keep coming back to that word think. You see, I say the trick is not to outwork the craft, the business, the profession that we've chosen, not to outwork it, rather to outsmart it. When salespeople go into a real estate office, they typically mouth these words, let's get stuck into it, which means that they immediately move to execution. Now, there's nothing wrong with executing. Of course, we have to get to execution at some stage. But I prefer to, before going to execution, to at least be working to a plan. Now, to formulate a plan, one has to think about the objective, where they're trying to get to, and formulate that plan in place. Now, some of us do this. Some of us do go ahead and put some sort of plan together that we hope to shape into a routine that we follow on a daily basis. Again, I don't say this is a problem, but what I do say is that quite often I hear salespeople say, I'll stick to the plan. Again, that's that hard-working mentality kicking in, meaning if they don't look like they're going to make it to the objective, they start saying, well, stick to the plan and work harder and grind and stick to that plan and you must be belligerent about it. I disagree. You see, I believe that if a plan is not allowing you, if seemingly it's not going to get you to that goal, then you must simply scrap the plan, go back to rethinking what you're going to do and reshape a plan before you get back to execution. Why is this so important, what I'm saying to you? Well, this is the best way I can explain it to you. You see, all of us are naturally good planners. We're great goal setters. We don't think we are, but let me give you a simple example. When you wake up each morning and you have to get to the office at a certain time, let's say it's a 9 o'clock start. So you get yourself out of bed at 7 o'clock, allow yourself plenty of time to prepare yourself, get mentally psyched, maybe sort kids out, things like that, before you get on your way. Now, when you go down and get into your vehicle, I'm going to hazard a guess here. I'll bet you don't put the key in the ignition, close your eyes, hit the accelerator and say, I'll see how I go. No. I imagine that you keep your eyes open and you start the vehicle and you navigate that vehicle in the shortest and most direct route to get to the office in the shortest space of time. What I say is if you're doing that, good on you. How efficient. Imagine if you applied that same attitude toward prospecting. Instead of saying, I need to call a certain number of people per day, instead you said, I need a listing presentation today for tomorrow, and you applied some thought. What is the shortest and most direct route to a seller that I can list now? Imagine if you did that. Surely the whole prospecting game alone would get easier. Again, because instead of just going straight into execution, before that you've started with thinking it through, putting a plan in place, and then going to execution. Now you're driving along to the office and you need to get there on time, and all of a sudden you happen across a roadblock or some road works or a traffic jam. Do you pull the vehicle over to the curb, throw your hands in the air and say, that's it, I give up, I'm not going to make it, so it won't do? Or do you, as you're driving, because you're running out of time, do you look and see another real estate office and just pull into that one, so that'll have to do? Of course you don't. So you do not compromise the goal to suit the plan. Instead, you start to think, how do I get around these roadworks? How do I get past this traffic block, this traffic jam? How do I get myself back on track and to the office on time? So we naturally recalibrate the plan. And this is very, very important that you understand this, because for some weird reason, by some happenstance of some strange phenomena, when we get to the office and we cross the threshold of that office and we walk in, we immediately stop thinking and planning and start to say to ourselves, I'll see how it goes today. Now, this is the death knell for a producer. You should not be using that phrase at any stage. So what I say, when it comes down to the grind, you've got to wake up in the morning. The only grind that I'm interested in is the caffeine-infused variety. You see, the moment somebody says to me that they're grinding, I believe they're creating an excuse for not actually having to think about something. Because if you employ the grey matter, you can overcome the grind by finding an easier way to get to your objective. So I say, pour yourself a coffee, sit down, and instead of getting stuck into it, instead begin with having a good, long think about it. And as they say in the world of efficiency, as a self-confessed lazy person, I can tell you, the first thing that you've got to look at is what I refer to as the straight line. You see, the shortest distance between 2 points is in fact a direct path, a straight line. So when it comes to prospecting, when it comes to listing a property for sale, when it comes to getting a buyer across the line, you need to start thinking about and employing more direct routes. Now, surely all of us have fallen victim to this, where you've found yourself out running some sort of prospecting method and your gut instinct is saying to you, this is futile. You see, salespeople, you need to understand this about yourself naturally. You are not geared toward You are not geared toward medium and long-term objectives. You are much more interested, naturally speaking, in short-term objectives. What do I mean by that? Well, somebody says to you that they're listing their property today. How's your natural energy around that? You boast out. If somebody called into the office and said, I'm signing an agency agreement this afternoon, my guess is you would almost take the hinges off the office door on the way out. You get down there, you're running your presentation, the client's nodding a lot and agreeing with what you have to say. Most certainly, you are probably jumping out of your skin at this stage. Then if they look across at you and say, listen, when I said before you came down that I was listing today, I meant what I said. Unfortunately, I've just had a call from the boss who has now said to me that I'm not going to know what I'm doing for another 6, 8, 10 weeks. How's your energy now? I bet the shoulders just slump and inside you start to hit the panic button because you probably counted this listing on the board already and now you start blubbering about how you might be able to get it across the line. Well, the way to mitigate this is to make sure that you've got abundance, you've got lots of irons in the fire, and your focus is always on the more immediate objectives that can actually get you thriving from the get-go. This is what becomes important. So what I say, there is no inspiration insofar as I'm concerned. Because I don't have a hard work disposition, when somebody suggests to me that it's going to be hard work for us to succeed at something, when somebody says I'm going to have to grind, well, that bothers me. I'm okay with the hustle, I'm just not okay with the grind. I just don't see the point. You see, the wonderful thing that I embrace about technology is all of the shortcuts it provides me to a direct result. And I ask you to start thinking about that. Who on earth could possibly be inspired of the idea of having to grind to achieve something? I would much prefer to outsmart it. You see, I find this inspiring. I find this fascinating. I would also like to suggest to you that one of the reasons that we're finding our industry under threat from third-party referrers, from online portals that are thinking about ways that they can somehow disintermediate us inside certain parts of the transaction. The reason that they're doing this is because they're looking to bypass the cumbersome ideal of grind and hard work and get to the solution sooner. Believe you me, your customers are looking for ways to get to the solution sooner. So the trick is to outsmart it. And what I would like to then suggest to you, that if you start to really engage the grey matter, instead of switching that brain off when you cross the threshold into the office, turn it right up and really have a good think about what you're doing, then you can start to develop habits that get you results on a daily basis. This is what I implore salespeople to start thinking about. Let's outsmart it. Let's be one step ahead of those that would seek to cut us out of the real estate equation, or start to clip, the commission check that we're receiving, and start to deliver instead even better value for our customers, value that has been carefully considered, we've given a lot of thought to it, and we are really giving them, yes, the results they want in a shorter time frame. You do that, and instead of the language revolving when you're talking about grind around me, we can start to talk about we. You see, because together, and a whole lot of minds put together, you come up with solutions at a much faster rate. So when you're talking to your colleagues, instead of just going at something in a belligerent manner and just trying to bludgeon your way through, instead sit back and say, hey, why don't we just have a good think about this? It's like communication when it comes to price reductions. I know that people in Western Australia are struggling with this because a lot of the sellers aren't coming to terms with it. Well, if you have a good think about it, the answer isn't going headlong at these sellers around price. That I liken that to sort of going to the front door, realizing it's locked, and then continuing to try to go through the front door, give them a shoulder. Is it really locked? Instead of saying, hang on, is the back door open? Or can I get through a window? Even if you have to lift a roof tile or smash a window, that's still a better angle when considered using the grey matter to get to the result sooner. So it's the same when you're talking to someone about a price reduction. Start thinking about the other angles. What about what they're trying to do? What about how they're feeling emotionally around this? What about demonstrating some empathy, that you understand the pressure that they're under, having to accept a way lower price than they might have even paid for the property? This is where the answers come when we apply thought. So to me, a vision, or a game plan of outsmarting this profession is way, way, way more palatable than sitting around and saying, I want to outwork it. Give up the grind, continue with the hustle, but hustle the mind. So I hope you've enjoyed that little 15 minutes of thought, and I look forward to entertaining you hopefully again soon on another edition of Ask Mark Anything.